Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the television shows, and then I come over here and I react to them. And today I want to talk about Silo Season 2, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about Silo Season 1. I guess I'm going to talk about Silo Season 1 versus Silo Season 2, and is there going to be a Silo Season 3? Or 4, and what happened at the end, the ending explained of Season 2. Were you guys confused? Did you have no idea what was going on? So I want to get into all of that today in this video. Okay, so I watched Silo Season 1 on Apple TV. When it came out. I think it came out a little bit over a year ago. I watched the first season of Silo. I have not read the books. I just want to make that very, very clear. Silo is a TV series on Apple that is based on a book series. I should probably give you guys a synopsis first before I get into anything about this. Okay, so Silo is... In a ruined and toxic future, a community exists in a giant underground silo that plunges hundreds of stories deep. There, people live in a society full of regulations they believe are meant to protect them. And the quote that I love about the silo is, "We do not know why everything outside the silo is as it is. We do not know when it will be safe to go outside. We only know that that day is not this day." So they used to say that a lot in Season 1, but they don't say it as much in Season 2. I don't know that they even said it once in Season 2. So I watched this. This is going to be full of spoilers. So if you have not watched Silo, which I would highly recommend, Season 1 and 2, I would recommend both of them. And you do have to watch them in order because Season 2 will make no sense if you've never watched Season 1. But if you want to watch it and you haven't watched it, I would not recommend this video because it'll be full of spoilers. So I watched Silo, I can't remember, it was probably a little bit over a year ago. I have several favorite streaming apps and I kind of go, and I'll watch a bunch of stuff on Netflix and then I'll watch a bunch of stuff on Apple. I think Apple puts out fantastic shows. I have loved so many Apple shows that have been out. I'm getting ready to watch Season 2 of Severance. I loved Hijack. I mean, there have been so many shows on Apple. I think Apple does unbelievably. The last thing that he told me, I think there's just been so many shows on Apple that have been phenomenal. And I can't remember what I was watching at the time. I can't remember what it's called. It's called Invasion or something like that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There's been 2 seasons out. I don't know if they're going to put a 3rd season out. But it's about aliens that, attack the Earth. And I was watching that. And my best friend and I were both watching it. We were talking about it at the same time. And she said, "Have you seen Silo?" Silo came out about the same time. And I was like, no. And so I went and I watched a trailer for Silo. I think the whole thing was out. But no, maybe it wasn't. I think we were on vacation when I watched it. And I had to come back and watch the final episode when we came back. So anyway, so that would have been around maybe New Year's that it was the last episode came out last year. So probably the same release time as this year. Because it just finished. Silo just finished about 2 weeks ago. So they release 1 episode a week. And there's 10 episodes a season, so there's 20 episodes out so far. So I started watching Silo, I don't know, a year ago. And, okay, to kind of break it down, it is all these people that are, it's sometime in the future. It's a very dystopian show. You don't know why they're living. There are these silos that go underneath the ground. You don't know why they live under the ground. You don't know what has happened to the earth. You don't know what has happened to cause them to live underground. You don't know how long they've lived underground. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, the very early Mad Max movies, but not so, over the top, if that makes sense. And the silos, as they go down, it's kind of it's interesting because the silos are set up kind of on a hierarchy. So the people at the very top are typically they don't really say it. I mean, wealth doesn't really have a whole lot of power in this thing, but they're the people with the most power. They're the people like the mayor, the judge, the director of IT and things like that. And then at the very bottom of the silo are the people that work in mechanical. And they're basically the ones that run the generators and everything that keeps the silo pumping. But they're also the people that are the poorest, that have the least, and things like that. And to get to the very top, to the very bottom, there's this screw work of staircases that you have to go down through the entire thing, right? And you're also not allowed to have in the silo things that are called relics. And relics are things that would be from our world today. Like a Pez dispenser is something that is considered a relic. They don't even know what these things are. They don't really know what music is. They don't know anything from our world. In the cafeterias, they have these screens. it looks like a window that looks outside, and it looks out into this, like, anyway, it looks out into this, like, barren land. And so people are constantly wondering what is going on outside. Like, why can't they go outside? Because they're not allowed to go outside. Why can't they go outside? Blah, blah, blah. And if they ask to go outside, then they go outside. They're, like, banished outside. And so they have to do what's called cleaning. They have to clean, like, the window or the camera on the window, the camera to the outside. Because the door, like, opens and they're outside, like, in this, like, they have to clean. And basically the cleaning kind of means, like, okay, it's like, we're alive, we're safe out here, thumbs up. And if they're, like, against kind of, like, the patriarchy, then they refuse to clean. But, like, it's kind of a punishment. Well, it is not kind of. It definitely is a punishment to be sent outside. People that, like, go against the law, or they ask to go outside or whatever, that are sent outside, they always die on this little hill that goes up. And they can't see past this hill. So they can't see if there are cities out there, if there's, like, grass out. They can't see what's going on out there. And so they can't see anything that's going on. So the first season of Silo is spent around this woman named Juliette that works in mechanical. And her dad is the doctor in the silo, one of the doctors in the silo, I think the main doctor, that's kind of over, like, he is the OBGYN of the facility. And that's another huge part of the story, is that they basically select who can and can't have kids in the silo. But the people in the silo don't really know that. They don't really understand that. And so it's kind of like this whole hidden thing that basically this, like, birth control implant is put into women. And then, like, if they want to have kids, they have to have it removed, and they have to be on this list to get it removed. So only so many kids are born and things like that to control population. It's this very controlled thing. Well, for a while, there's been these people that are, I mean, for lack of a better word, conspiracy theorists that are like, I think there's a lot they're keeping from us. There's things we don't know. Like, why are we here? Why won't they let us outside? What's going on outside? And, so Juliette becomes part of this. And so the whole first season is about her trying to find out what is happening. And Tim Robbins plays, like, one of the power people. He kind of changes different positions throughout it. He's, like, the director of IT in the second season. Anyway, he basically at the end of season 1 banishes her outside and tells everybody that she asked to go outside when she did not ask to go outside. So he banishes her to go outside. This is the end of season 1. And she's friends with all the people in mechanical because she's worked in mechanical since she was, like, a young girl. And there's tons of storylines behind all that, okay, why she got down. I mean, there's so many different things that go on in this show. It's so fantastic. But anyway, so she goes outside, but one of her friends, this older woman that she's lived with and stayed with during her time in mechanical and has become really, really close friends with, she has realized that the reason why people are dying when they go outside is because they're sealing their suits. They go in these, like, astronaut suits. They're sealing their suits with this tape that has leaks. It's not, like, the best tape. And so she has her, like, ex-wife works in supplies, and so she works with her to make sure that Juliette has different kind of tape that will work better. So when Juliette goes out there, she actually has tape on her suit that is a different kind of tape than most people that go out there, so she doesn't die. And she refuses to clean. So everybody is, like, rooting for her, because now at this point, everybody's like, we're all being lied to in the silo. So she's basically the Joan of Arc of the silo, okay? And she says, I'm done with this place. And then she walks up, and they all think she's going to die on the hill, but she turns, and then she walks over the hill. And they don't see it. So then now she's become kind of this, like, this martyr figure as far as the silo, okay? And they don't know what's happened to her. They don't know where she's at, blah, blah, blah. This is the very last episode of season 1. What we see as the viewers is that she looks out, and there's, like, all of these silos. So what we realize is they're not the only silo. There's, like, tons and tons of silos out there, right? Like, we don't even know how many. Okay, so that's how season 1 ends. So season 2 comes out, and I'm getting very mixed reviews from people. Like, my best friend, she started it. She's like, I just couldn't get into it. She actually, last night, because I told her how good it was, she started watching. She's like, oh my God, I'm so into it now. I'm like 4 episodes in. Other people online were like, when I would talk about it on, like, my vlog and stuff like that, people would, because I vlog daily, if you don't know, so it's called Peter Vlogs. Anyway, I just kind of talk about my life, but I talk a lot about the TV shows I'm watching, and people gave me kind of mixed reviews. They would direct message me or comment, and they would say, oh, I love Silo, it's so good this season. Other people would be like, oh no, this is, like, the worst season ever. So I kind of had it on my long list of shows to watch. Well, the other night, I was like, I'm in between the Harlan Coben shows because I got 2 more shows in the Harlan Coben shows, and I've finished all the Netflix Harlan Coben shows, and I'm going to do a ranking over here. And so I was like, I need kind of a break from this. So I was like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to watch Silo season 2. So I watched the first episode. I wouldn't say I was bored, but I was very confused. And so Juliette on season 2 is now, like, they don't know where she's at. And so it's basically like this rebellion is brewing because Juliette is now like this kind of like Joan of Arc figure, like I said. And so like there's this rebellion that is brewing in the silo, okay? And they think that they've been lied to. Like, now Juliette's alive. How did she make it over if nobody else did? It must be safe to go outside and all this kind of stuff. Okay. So she finds another silo, and she breaks into the silo. I think it's silo 17. She breaks into the silo, and she goes into the silo, okay? And then while she's in this other silo, trying to find a suit to get back to her other silo, which that's really all she does there is just try to find, I don't know what, anyway. So when she's there, so she goes into this other silo, which there's all these bodies around the silo. So people came out and then they all died as soon as they got outside. She doesn't really understand why or what happened. She doesn't understand it. But she goes into this silo and there's like nobody there. There's one person in this vault. So there's these things called vaults in the silos. And the vaults have basically all of like the artwork, the books, the scientific research, everything that is from the old times that they've tried to protect and keep, okay? Like, all, like there's I think they show the Mona Lisa in the season 2. It's like hanging behind, like Tim Robbins. It's like hanging behind him in like one of the scenes at the end of the vault. But they've got all the books, they've got all this kind of stuff. So she goes to the vault because she's trying to get to, like, she sees these lights on there and she hears music playing. And Steve Zahn, who I absolutely adore, I love Steve Zahn so much. I've watched him way back when with, you know, Candy Cane and Joyride and all that kind of stuff. So he's in the vault and he says he's the shadow of the IT director, okay? And so she's thinking that all these people just died not too long ago, like in the last couple years or 10 years or whatever. Because he's like probably, I mean, he's like older than me in real life. So she's thinking he's like in his 50s. So like this probably just happened in the last 5 or 10 years, right? When in reality, what we don't, you can kind of piece it together. He was like 12 when the silo went down. So he's been in there alone for all these years, okay? And stayed in this, basically this vault with like all the food and music and all this kind of stuff. And all. So anyway, so she's in there and she wants a suit and he wants her to help her plug the electricity back in, basically that's under 8 feet or 8, you know, stories of water. So she's got to go do that. And then she comes out and then there's like these kids that are in there that are like, which doesn't really make any sense when you do the timing, that he would have been 12 when everybody died. There would have had to been some people left, and so it's like their parents ended up being killed by Steve Zahn. It's like to be honest with you, like when you kind of do the math in your head quick, and I'm not great at math, like it doesn't really make any sense, honestly. But anyway, so there's like 3 teenagers and like a little baby and like this little boy. And the 2 teenagers are a couple. And then they have like a little boy or he's like their brother or something. I don't really know what he is. And then there's like a baby. And then there's this other girl that she's a teenager and they don't like her. They call her Eater because if it wasn't for her like eating all the food, then her parents would have had to go to the vault. And then anyway, so then they like shoot an arrow at Juliette, and then she's like working with them to try to get a suit, and then she's got to, anyway, so then we'll just get all this out of the way. So then they like hurt Steve Zahn, and then like she needs Steve Zahn to get into the vault, so then she like works out everything, and everything's like peaceful, and then they're like all in the vault eating food, listening to music, and then she leaves the vault. That's how her part is. And then Steve Zahn's like, but you're coming back, right? And she's like, I'll do my best, is what she says at the end of season 2. Okay. So at the same time that all this is going on in Silo 17, I think Silo 19 or wherever she's from, there's like this major rebellion happening, okay, against basically the mechanical, which is basically like the poor people versus like the upper echelon, the people that are running the show. It's very, very hard to watch this show, especially like in the times that we're living right now, and not be a little bit like, this is so interesting, the timing. I mean, like the books were written. Now, I went in and I read from the creator of the show, and they changed like the genders of a lot of characters. They changed like the outcomes of a lot of characters because they wanted it to be surprising for people that read it. What's interesting to me, and I didn't notice this until the second season, is because Juliette is like this force to be reckoned with anyway. I mean, she's just like this enigmatic character. You love her. She's so powerful. She's like, she will never come down. But what you see in season 2 is several female characters that are like empowered and of strength. It's very, very interesting to see. And you kind of see this uprising of women in season 2. And I have to say, when they talked in the interview that I read about like changing genders and stuff, I think it's extremely deliberate that they're doing a lot of this to kind of show about like this fight against the patriarchy. I think it's really interesting that they're doing it. And I think it's really, really well done. And one of the examples of that is that this guy that is basically, he wants to be the shadow to Tim Robbins. And the shadow means basically like the assistant to it. But when Tim Robbins kills the judge, okay, who I absolutely love, the woman that was the judge, but she didn't really do a whole lot anyway. So she's supposed to be like in charge of everything, but she really isn't. And he's the mayor. Tim Robbins is the mayor. And so the Sims guy is basically head of security, and he wants to be the shadow to the mayor, okay? But instead, when the judge is killed by Tim Robbins, he makes him the judge, basically saying, you have no power. Well, the judge's wife is this Sims guy, who's always trying to do the right thing, but seems kind of shady through most of season 1 and half of season 2. His wife, Camille, is like, she just really is like, wants to protect the family, but also kind of like power hungry. And so she's like, when all this falls, like, they're going to need a leader, and they're going to need you to lead them, like, in the rebellion. He's like, well, they won't listen to me because I've been on the wrong side of it all this time. And she's like, no. She's like, that's not true. And he's like, yeah. And then she's like, well, then I'll do it, okay? So at the very end of the show, one of the things that happens is the 3 of them go into this vault, okay? Because he now has the key. Tim Robbins is like, I'm going outside. If I die, he takes a gun with him. He's like, I just want to see what outside. They all hate Tim Robbins at the end because he's like the mayor. He's destroyed the silo. There's this huge rebellion against him. So he knows he's either going to get killed or he's going to die outside. So he's like, I'm going to go outside. And that's kind of like what happens. So he gives the Sims guy the key to go in the vault, basically to protect himself. Now, the whole behind scenes is that there's this other guy, okay? This Lucas guy that is like working with him that actually was friends with Juliette in season 1 to try to find out what's really going on with the silo. And basically what he finds out is that the silo can be poisoned at any moment and anybody can die. Now, Juliette's also found that out in the other silo that she's in, okay? So that's why she's running back to tell everybody that they can be killed if this poison goes off, but she thinks that she's figured out a way to fix it, okay? So that's why she's coming back to the old silo so she can save everybody. So now they've all just given up. And he's told the mayor, and him and his mom are kind of like hanging out and all this kind of stuff. So he's just given up. He don't care no more. He's just like, we're all going to die, so I guess I'm going to spend time with my mom that I really haven't spent any time with for the last 6 years, but I'll spend time with her now. So anyway, real nice. It's real nice. So anyway, so then they go into the vault, Sims, Camille, his wife, and their son, and this voice that comes over, it's like the almighty voice that runs everything, is like, you and your son can leave, but Camille can stay. Basically saying she's a new director of IT, okay? Now, this is really, really important, because this is basically saying that going forward, men have fucked this up and women are going to run this thing, okay? It's very, very important that this, like, it's a very small moment, but going forward, I think it's going to play out a lot. So then that happens, and then Tim Robbins, Juliette's rushing back, she's trying to get back into the silo, and then it opens, and then she's face-to-face with Tim Robbins, who has a gun. Now, this has been, like, her biggest enemy throughout the entire show. He's the one that put her outside. Okay. So he, like, made her sheriff in the first one, then, like, the whole thing's a mess. Oh, the sheriff in the second one, I really like him, the guy that played, I think his name is Paul. I really like him. There's so many different storylines, I could go into this forever. So anyway, so they're, like, facing off, and then at the last minute, the door's about to close, so they both run in, and then, like, fire shoots out. So you don't know if they're gonna die or not, okay? And all of a sudden, you hear rain, but there's no rain in the silo. So it's like, where's the rain coming from? And then it flashes to, okay, the scene, it's raining, and it's Washington, D.C., and this guy goes into this bar, and he's, like, a freshman congressman or something like that, and he has to get scanned for radiation when he goes in this bar. But it seems like it's like today's time, which kind of makes it kind of eerie and scary. And he goes in there and he meets with this girl, and you think it's like a date. But at the end of it, basically she says, I think the people of the United States... So some bomb has gone off. They call it a dirty bomb in New Orleans. And some bomb has gone off. And apparently people died from it. And it's supposed to be between, like, they insinuate, like, this war between the United States and Iran. But they don't, like, get into the details. They don't, like, she's like, do you know anybody that was hurt? And he's like, no, and he doesn't either. It's real interesting because when I read the article, it said New Orleans, but I thought it was Washington, D.C. because he said my sister lives in Washington, D.C., but she was out of town at the time. But anyway, he thinks it's a date. She's wanting to work with him on some kind of project to, like, tell the U.S. citizens what's going on, and he can't do that. But he leaves her a present, okay? And she's like, oh, you got me a present? He's like, it's just something that I got from the corner store. And what he gives her is a Pez dispenser. Now, this is really, really important because the Pez dispenser is like this relic from the silo that's hundreds of years old that we have no idea why, like, this Pez dispenser has been saved. But to, like, I mean, it's kind of comical when you're watching it because they, like, are like, oh, what is this? It's a Pez dispenser, right? But what it signifies is that these two are going to have something to do with the origination of the silo. Okay, so I read this whole article because I was like, I'm not somebody, to be honest with you, that needs, unless it's like a definitive, there's not going to be any like future seasons or anything like that. I'm not somebody that needs like explained. I can wait till the next season. So the first thing I found this article from Time Magazine that they interviewed the creator of the show. Okay, so first of all, there's 2 more seasons, season 3 and 4. It's been renewed for both seasons, I believe. And it's going to be a conclusive ending to a series, okay? And what they say, what the creator says in here is, let me get into this just really quick. Okay, what the creator says in here is, for those left confused by the sudden shift in the season 2 finale, it says, we get in season 3, the beginning of the silos next season, we get into the original origin story, but we also go deep into our silo world, he says. There will also be more to learn about the dirty bomb. In season 3, we'll find out what happened to Silo 17. That's the silo that she was at before. So we will find out exactly what happened to Silo 17. The silo Juliette spent the vast majority of the season in. By the end of season 3, you'll know what happened to the people who went outside of 17. And the why and how of all of that. That's a big thing that will get solved and how the whole thing began. And then it goes on and he says, one of the things I loved about the books is that the writer, Howie, paced out the revealing of the answers to the mysteries, and we're trying to keep to the pace too. The audience finds out as Juliette finds out more. More mysteries are certain to be answered in the final 2 seasons, but we'll have to wait and see if it's still Juliette uncovering them. So one of the things that he says in here, hold on, when you talk about the door, is that he says that, and one of the things that we learned from season 1 is that anybody can die. So he's not ruling out that Juliette could die or that Tim Robbins' character could die. I could totally see Tim Robbins' character dying, but I have a feeling that neither one of them are going to die. I think what's going to happen, and I haven't read the books, but what I think is going to happen is, I think Juliette will in some way save Tim Robbins, and I think it will form a unity for them to save the silo. And then at the last minute, he'll like backstab her for power or something like that. I don't know. There's going to be some unification between Juliette and Tim Robbins' character, which I think his name is Bernard in the show. And I think that they're going to have to go back to 17 or something because they're going to destroy it. They destroyed the generator in the silo, so they lost like the bottom half of the stairway. So there's no way for them to get to the very bottom now unless they go dangle from ropes and all this kind of stuff. The show is so good. I was so blown away that people were saying they didn't like season 2. I actually thought season 2 was like 100 times better than season 1. I mean, there was so much going on. I mean, there's romance, there's this long-term, like, you know, lesbian relationship that's, like, reunified, and they explain the back history of it. There's, like, the story of, like, the judge who's, like, this alcoholic, and it explains why she drinks, and that all she wants to do is go outside, and it relates to, like, the Wizard of Oz, and it goes into, like, the history of the silo and what's going on. You meet all these other people in the other silo and how they survived, and I don't know, it's so fantastically done. I want to read the books. If anybody's read the books, if they're exactly like the show, I don't want to read them, but I've, like, really wanted to read them for a while because I love season 1 so much, and season 2 I thought was just so much better, and I am excited to watch season 3, and I hope they get into the origin story of how the silos were built. If the books do, let me know, because I would definitely read them then. Anyway, let me know if you've watched it and what you thought in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.